Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I want to begin by recognizing that even though it's Saturday, there are people across the country who are on the job. Whether you're hospital staff or a first responder, a bus driver, Whether you're hospital staff or a first responder, a bus driver, truck driver, or freight train operator, I know you're working harder than ever right now. So thank you. You're making a real difference for people who need you. I want you to know that we see that, and we're standing behind you. Whatever our government can do to support you, to keep you safe, to protect our economy, we're doing everything we can to make it happen. And that includes for northern communities. We're working with partners to reduce travel to northern communities to help protect them from the virus. Today, the Northwest Territories will issue an order to limit non-essential travel into the territory. We support this important step. At the same time, we're focused on ensuring essential goods get to people in these communities. We will continue to work with partners and stakeholders on travel to the north. This past week, we also announced new measures to put more money in people's pockets to get through this uncertain time. This means everything from boosting the Canada Child Benefit to increasing the GST credit to giving people a break from paying back their student loans. We've unveiled a plan to mobilize industry to produce things like masks and ventilators. And to accelerate vital research, $25 million will go to teams across the country working on measures to detect, manage, and reduce the spread of COVID-19. For Canadians who are overseas, we're sending them texts with important information. We've announced new funding to help people borrow up to $5,000 to return to Canada or to cover their needs while waiting to come home. And public servants are working around the clock to help people who are stranded. On that last front, we've continued to make progress in the last few days. Aujourd'hui,
Today, I'm announcing that our government is working with Canadian Airlines to make commercial flights more accessible to Canadians who are stuck abroad. We're also working with other countries to make sure that our airlines have the necessary permits and logistic measures necessary to actually allow these flights to take off. A first Air Canada flight will leave Morocco at the weekend. We're working with our airlines as well to reach similar agreements. We're planning other flights over the coming dates, potentially from Spain and Peru, with other countries being announced as quickly as possible. Several factors have been taken into account when we decide where flights will leave from. For example, the number of Canadians in specific areas of the world, the closure of airspace, or the local situation as well. We will not be able to reach everyone, but we will do everything we can to help as many people as possible. Now, for the government to be able to contact people who need help as quickly as possible, all those abroad must register with Foreign Affairs if they have not already done so. You can do it online at travel.gc.ca. The same health policies that apply to those people coming into Canada will also apply to these flights. All passengers on these flights will have to go into self-isolation for 14 days when they get back to Canada. I'd also like to remind you that if you have symptoms of COVID-19, you cannot get on the plane. Our goal here is to protect your health and the health of your loved ones as well, so it's crucial that everyone does their part.
We're working with Canadian Airlines to make commercial flights available for as many Canadians who are stranded as possible. We will also be working with other countries to ensure that our airlines have the permissions and other supports necessary to fly. The first flight is leaving Morocco this weekend and is being operated by Air Canada. We're currently working with other airlines on similar arrangements. And there will be more flights from other locations in the coming days. This potentially includes Peru and Spain. Other countries will be announced as soon as possible. As we make these decisions, factors like the number of Canadians there, airspace closures, and the local situation are being taken into account. Now, we won't be able to reach everyone, but we're going to do our best to help those we can. To make sure we can get information to people as quickly as possible, all Canadians overseas should register with Global Affairs Canada if they've not already done so. You can do this by going online to travel.gc.ca. The same public health policies will apply to these flights as to anyone else who's coming into the country. Everyone on these flights has to isolate for 14 days once they're back. I also want to remind everyone that if you're showing symptoms of COVID-19, you won't be able to board. This is about keeping all Canadians safe, so we need everyone to do their part. On that note, I want to recognize the airlines that are working with us to get travelers home and families reunited. I'd especially want to thank the staff, from pilots to air crews, for their professionalism and dedication. During a very difficult time for the industry, when people are worried about their jobs and futures, they're still stepping up to help. This has been a tough week for a lot of Canadians. People are concerned about their health and the economy. And today, on the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, let's not forget that people are worried about how fear can fuel racism, too. So let's be kind to each other. And let's stand up against discrimination wherever you see it. In the days and weeks ahead, as we continue to feel the impacts of this virus, it will be more important than ever to fight against fear, misinformation, and stigma. We must continue to pull together, because in times of need, our strength is defined by how we care for each other, as neighbors, as communities, and as a country. Même pendant la fin de semaine, on doit tous faire notre part.
Even during the weekend, we have to continue to be vigilant. We must continue to follow the recommendations from our public health agencies and limit to a maximum the travel we do. Perhaps you'll miss not going to the restaurant with your family or not going to the movie theaters with your friends. But to protect yourself, we must all make adjustments. We must look after each other as well. That's crucial, because it's together that we'll get through this very tough period. Thank you very much.
Hi, Prime Minister. Molly Thomas from CTV National News. I saw today that the Foreign Affairs Minister has spoken to officials in Australia, Brazil, Germany, Peru, and Turkey. You mentioned Spain as well. For Canadians that are outside of maybe more populated areas or places that we're talking to, is it safer for them to stay put? They are scared and they're asking us, I mean, should we stay? Should we avoid those airports? Should we avoid places of getting trapped in another country en route?
I think everyone needs to take the best decisions for them. Obviously, if they are not certain they're going to be getting on a flight, they're probably better to stay in place. But Global Affairs Canada will give recommendations like that on various situations. People will need to use their best judgment. We're doing everything we can to help as many people as possible. But as I said, airspace closures that different countries are putting in, logistical challenges, these are things that we're dealing with right now as a world. Okay. Évidemment, nous voulons que les Canadiens.
Well, of course, we want Canadians do everything in their power to stay safe and healthy. They'll have to judge based on their particular circumstances. I would recommend that they don't go to the airport if you're not confirmed on one of these flights. But Global Affairs Canada will share more information with you to make sure that Canadians are able to make the right choice for themselves to keep themselves safe and healthy.
Man lost his life. He wasn't tested for the virus until he was put into ICU. He only came back positive after he had died. I mean, we know that there's community spread. Should we not be testing people beyond just those with travel histories here?
The ramping up of testing is increasing at a tremendous pace. Tens of thousands more people are being tested every single day. We are getting more equipment for testing. We recognize that broad-scale testing is an essential tool in continuing to fight the spread of this disease. And as I said, every single day we are doing far more tests than the day before, and that will continue to ramp up. Nous reconnaissons que le dépistage.
Well, we recognize that testing is an essential tool for us to deal with the spread of this virus. This is why every day we're testing tens of thousands of extra people, and this increases to grow every day. We know that mass testing, is one of the best ways of protecting Canadians and of reducing the spread of the virus as well.
I wanted to ask about the Emergencies Act. Speed is critical in containing this virus. We've seen what happens when countries wait too long to restrict people's movement. Polite requests only go so far. Why not declare a federal state of emergency now and get ahead of where this is going?
I want to thank the millions upon millions of Canadians who have self-isolated, who are engaged in social distancing. That is the fundamental thing that we all can do and need to do to prevent the spread of this virus. We know that in many global crises or situations, individuals feel powerful to make a difference, powerless to make a difference. In this situation, people can affect their health, the health of their neighbors, by taking straightforward steps to self-isolate wherever possible, and to move and to keep social distancing to a maximum. We have not removed from the table any options. We're looking at a broad array of measures that we can move forward with. At this time, we do not see the Federal Emergencies Act as an essential tool today, but we are continuing to look at the situation, and we'll make decisions based on the best recommendations of science.
And what do you need to see before declaring a federal emergency?
I think the key issue is, are there things that we need to be able to do as a government that we cannot do with the very strong existing regulations that are in place and that our government has as tools? Okay. Évidemment, je veux remercier.
Well, of course, I'd like to first of all thank the millions of Canadians who are following the recommendations of our public health agencies to the letter, who are practicing social distancing, working from home, etc. These are things that we can all do, not just to deal with the global crisis, but also to keep ourselves and our loved ones healthy. We're also looking at the Federal Emergencies Act as well, but we don't think that this time it's necessary to invoke that act because we already have the tools to do everything that science is recommending we do today, but nothing is off the table, in fact, for the future. Christian Noël, French CBC. For those Canadians who want to come back to Canada, you're organizing air bridges. Who's paying for these flights? Will it be clients, passengers who will pay, and will the government make sure that there's no gouging by the airlines? That's right. We're working with the airlines currently to make sure that the prices being paid by passengers are responsible and appropriate for those flights. We're there, of course, to help the airline, if necessary, to cover their costs for these flights, if necessary. But we do expect that those Canadians who have to come back pay for their own tickets.
We have worked out we're working out an agreement with airline companies where the government will help to cover extra costs, but we expect Canadians being returned home on these emergency flights to pay a responsible ticket price for their return.
La pandémie semble originer.
Now, the pandemic seems to originate in the live markets in China. This is the third time since SARS and H1N1. Could Canada use its vote or its presence at the UN to ask that China actually crack down and eliminate these markets? Well, I think that over the coming months and years, we'll be learning a lot on this pandemic. We'll learn how it actually started and how we can actually stop it happening again in the future. For the time being, all our efforts are focused on protecting people today, tomorrow, and in the future, and to make sure that we're able to resolve the health care or the health emergency for Canadians. Then after it's over, there'll be discussions to have about how to stop future pandemics of this type.
Minister, you've said it's inevitable that there are going to be Canadians stranded abroad. What is your message to those Canadians who are scared? They're in countries where the medical system is not like it is here in Canada. There are towns under lockdown with heavy military presence. They're afraid they could be stuck there for months. what do you tell them and their families?
First of all, Canada is making consular assistance available, a loan of $5,000, for example, to help them in either buying tickets home or being able to hunker down in place. It is an extremely difficult situation, but the lockdowns of various countries, the limits on air travel, logistical capacities of our airlines means that we are unlikely to be able to bring everyone home. So we're going to ask people to stay safe, to make smart choices, and do the best they can in a situation that is unprecedented, exceptional, and very difficult.
And what's the level of cooperation that you've received from Canadian commercial airlines to try to repatriate Canadians? And as well, what bailout is on the way for them?
I have spoken directly with the heads of Canada's largest airlines over the past days, and I can tell you that they are all in terms of supporting Canadians, in terms of getting people home. There are, of course, limits to what we can all do to rescue everyone, but I can assure you that the airlines have been very positive, thoughtful partners on that, and we recognize that Canada's airline industry has been strong and successful in years past, and will need to be strong and successful once this pandemic follows its course and we come out the other side. We will be there to support airlines and other industries that have been sorely hit by this particular crisis.
Thank you. We'll now go to the phone lines for a few questions. Moderator.
Thank you. Please press star 1 if you have a question. Faites étoile 1 pour toute question. The first question, la première question est de Lina Dib, Presse canadienne. Please go ahead. Your line is now open.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau.
Hello, Mr. Trudeau. Earlier this week, Mr. Legault was advising Quebecers to stay in their own regions. Newfoundland is stopping Canadian travellers coming to Newfoundland. The Northwest Territory is doing the same thing. Even if you have not decided to order everyone to stay at home, are you prepared to recommend that people don't travel domestically? Well, we recommend that Canadians stop travelling unless it's essential. We're recommending that people stay at home, that they don't go and see their neighbours. That applies to the U.S. It also applies to the provinces and territories as well. Now, there are people who have important reasons to travel for family, for business, but if people are able to keep their travel to a minimum and stay at home as much as possible, that'll be a good thing for everyone.
We're asking people to stay home as much as possible, to avoid non-essential travel. And that means not going to see your neighbors if you don't have to. And that applies to the United States, but it also applies to other provinces. We recognize that people have reasons, whether family reasons or work reasons or other important reasons to travel, and they can make those judgments. But as much as possible, people should be staying home. People should be self-isolating with their family members so we can all get through this, and so we can be making sure we're keeping our healthcare professionals and our healthcare system safe and able to handle the capacity.
Thank you. Next question, moderator.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Greg Quinn from Market News. Please go ahead. Your line is now open.
Good morning. Bank of Montreal and Scotiabank have said the deficit this year could come in at around $100 billion, about twice the previous record. Have you seen any official figures from government of those kinds of numbers? And do you have any kind of hesitation politically or economically about that kind of figure?
We've heard a wide range of estimates from economists and banks about how bad this is going to get. The only thing they seem to agree on is that it's going to get very bad. Fortunately, Canada is an extremely strong fiscal position. We have one of the lowest debt to GDP ratios, the lowest debt as a factor of the size of our economy of most of our allied countries, and that gives us room to inject money into people's pockets, into the economy as necessary. We will focus on ensuring that Canadians and companies get through this difficult time so that once we're through, we can pick up where we left off and continue to have a strong and prosperous economy. This is what we're focusing on right now, how to bridge Canadians and businesses through this difficult time. We have the capacity to do that, and we will do what is necessary.
Thank you. Last question, moderator.
Thank you. We have a question from Mia Rapson from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. Your line is now open.
Good morning, Prime Minister. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the capacity of the civil service to deliver things like employment insurance. We saw record numbers of people applying for EI this week and lots of people saying they couldn't get through on the phones, they don't know how to apply. How, with everybody working at home or so many working from home and so many applications, is the government going to be able to manage this?
We recognize that we need to do things that are absolutely unprecedented in terms of getting money out the door into the pockets of Canadians who need it. We have many different programs and many different tools that are designed to do that in normal times. In these exceptional uncertain times, we're having to take new measures and create new measures to be able to deliver for Canadians who need it right now. Our civil servants are working extraordinarily hard to ensure that's possible, but it's not just about delivering existing programs to far more people. It's about actually simplifying both the process around application and delivery to be able to get money to the people who need it in this exceptional circumstance. I want to thank all public servants, not just at the federal level, but at provincial levels as well, who are working incredibly hard, many of them from home, to ensure that we're able to hold on as a country as we get through these difficult times. We will continue to use various measures in order to get money out to people through many of the things that we have in place already, but we're also looking at new things, and the civil service is an essential part of flowing that. Merci beaucoup tout le monde.